Good morning. My name is Megan Fenton, and I'm your worship associate this morning. We welcome back our guest pianist, Blake Rowe, today. Please rise, embody your spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 38, Morning Has Broken, in your gray hymnal.
Good morning. I'm Gunnell Rydstrom. I'm a member of a board of trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you have been with this congregation for a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. And whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. And we respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homeland of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. There are two special announcements. Please be aware that this week, a scammer was imitating Reverend Daniel using a false email address, similar to Reverend Daniel's, but actually different. And if you received an email titled Many Blessings, or asking you to do a favor or purchase something immediately, please report it as a spam. Reverend Daniel will never ask you to send money or make purchases over email. Many congregations in our area, including First Unitarian in Brooklyn, are suffering from minister imposter emails, and please report any you receive as spam. And if anyone was impacted in any way, please report that to Nora or Reverend Daniel. The second thing is, membership committee is sponsoring a family game night On Saturday, May 13th, the potluck will begin at 5:30. If you're planning to attend, see Sherry Brown and sign up for whatever you plan to bring. All are invited. For the most up-to-date information, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website. The website is also the place where you can receive contact information for our staff, board members, or other congregational leaders. And please join us for coffee hour after the service. If you are present in the sanctuary, we will have coffee hour in Fellowship Hall. If you are watching the live stream, you will receive a link at the end of the service for a Zoom virtual coffee hour. If you are just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-news, please email us your name and we will make sure you add it to the list. We can also answer any questions you might have. Email us at uucroton@gmail.com or fill out one of the yellow cards at the back of the pews and drop it in the collection plate. For those of you in the sanctuary, please silence your cell phones at this time. And once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
Today we welcome back Reverend Terri Pahucki, who is the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stamford, Connecticut. Terri earned her Master's of Divinity from Drew Theological School and Hartford Seminary and was ordained at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Westchester, her internship congregation, in the fall of 2021. Welcome.
It's great to be back with you today. Come, let us gather, all who seek. Come, keepers of faith, makers of peace, children of delight. Come as you are. Bring your wisdom, your questions, your quest for meaning. Let us gather in this place, surrounded by life. As wind outside whistles through the trees, as the sun struggles to break through the clouds and offer us light, as rain washes over the earth. This too is the spirit of life, the spirit of love that we call forth into our gathering. In the words of Reverend Seth Carrier-Ladd, may this spirit infuse our hearts, fill our souls, and carry us forward like a wave on the ocean as we enter now into this sacred time and space. Come, let us worship together.
We now invite the children of the congregation to come and ring our bell 8 times for our 8 ethical principles. Today's chalice lighting words are from Cynthia Landrum. We light this chalice, the beacon that calls us to love, to justice, to a deepening of the spirit. Now please join me in saying our unison affirmation. The words are in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature connect deeply and openly, and act for justice. We are now going to go ahead and sing the children out. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a brief yet personally significant joy or sorrow that you are willing to share, please come up to the microphone and speak loudly so that everyone, including the people watching at home, can hear you. If you would prefer to only have a candle lit without speaking, please just stand or give me a signal and I will light a candle for you.
My name's John Eigner. I haven't been up here in a long while. It's my joy to announce that the company that I'm involved with, Jobfather Productions and EMP Media, Empower Media, are looking for an intern, a summer intern, who will be paid. And anybody interested, please contact me and I'll provide more information. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Nora. I have a sorrow that's also slightly a joy. My daughter hurt her back very badly, so she called me and said, "Mom, can you come out here and help me with the baby?" And so I'm going to sacrifice myself and spend a week with my daughter and my granddaughter. Enjoy that song.
We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts, and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they can share their joys and sorrows.
Let us take a moment of centering, a moment to turn inward in the spirit of quiet meditation. As we step away from the busyness of our lives, may we turn toward the stillness, toward something quiet yet fully alive. If we listen carefully, we can almost hear the rhythm of our hearts, the steady pulsing beat of life within. Follow the rhythm. Where does it lead? There is an ever-flowing stream, a river beneath our days that carries us on. Listen. What does your heart say? Is it open or closed? So easily bruised and broken, and yet so resilient and strong. Tender and vulnerable, reaching in and reaching out towards more life. Our hearts are the givers and receivers of something so strong, the power of love. But they are not alone. In community, we are held by love, by hearts that expand and overflow, by the longing to connect and the tenderness that calls us into being, by the kindness that heals us in times of brokenness, by the gentle hands that reach out to comfort us when we fall. May we open our hearts to receive the gifts of love, love that makes doors wide, love that tears down walls, love that sees ourselves in others' eyes, love that calls us forth into the world. May we be embraced by a love so wide that holds and heals us all as we enter a moment of silence.
Today's reading is from Marge Piercy. It's the Seven of Pentacles. Under a sky the color of pea soup, she is looking at her work growing away there, actively, thickly like grapevines or pole beans. As things grow in the real world slowly enough, if you tend them properly, if you mulch, if you water, if you provide birds that eat insects a home and winter food, if the sun shines and you pick off caterpillars, if the praying mantis comes and the ladybugs and the bees, then the plants flourish, but at their own internal clock. Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot tell always by looking what is happening. More than half the tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Penetrate quietly as the earthworm that blows no trumpet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down the tree. Spread like the squash plant that overruns the garden. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections, create real nodes, build real houses. Live a life you can endure. Make love that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in. A thicket and bramble wilderness to the outside, but to us, interconnected with rabbit runs and burrows and lairs. Live as if you liked yourself, and it may happen. Reach out, keep reaching out, keep bringing in. This is how we are going to live for a long time, not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes. Now please stand and join us in singing hymn number 12, O Life That Maketh All Things New.
Growing up in Rochester, New York, I was saturated with religion. My progressive urban Catholic church was a second home to me. I went to Mass with my family, served as an altar server, sang in the children's choir, performed in the Christmas pageant, and helped my parents bag lunches for the homeless in the Friday night supper program. And I also attended a Catholic school, if that weren't enough. This school is a little more orthodox, rule-based kind of Catholicism, where I memorized the act of contrition, took tests on the 10 Commandments. I see some nodding of former Catholics here. The 7 sacraments, knew them by heart, and even made my first communion twice. Once with the school, once with the church. I didn't know how to decide. So, well, if that weren't enough religion for me, I also tended to take it home. I had a little booklet where I acted out the consecration of turning the bread and the wine into the body and blood of Christ. And now here I am. Held burial ceremonies for the little things, dead birds and mice that my cats brought home. And was surrounded by devout and practicing Christians of other varieties as well. My Jehovah Witness neighbors, my Pentecostal aunts and uncles. It seemed that everywhere I went, there was religion, particularly Christianity. Everywhere, that is, except for my Grandpa Bill's home and garden. My Grandpa Bill was my mom's dad, a World War II vet with a sly humor and a generous heart. He was a little bit cynical and a whole lot stubborn. And although he had been raised Catholic and even served as an altar boy, he had in his adult life enough, more than enough, of church. He was an agnostic, and the only time he really talked about anything related to God, he used to say that the angels were bowling when it was thundering and lightning. And we sat together and watched the storm from the porch. But when I look back on a lifetime of spiritual seeking and religious transformation, it's him, it's my grandfather, Grandpa Bill, who figures so prominently. His is the story of commitment and hope, home and love, spiritual emergence and wonder. His is the story of the spirit of life. You see, my grandfather was a gardener. He had a green room full of growing plants, and he named those plants after his children and his grandchildren. So every time I visited, I counted the buds on the Terri gardenia plant, and I was so excited every time one of those buds bloomed. Throughout the summer, we would sit under an oak tree in the backyard and watch the rows of green beans and tomato plants grow while he told stories to his grandchildren and also the other stray children that tended to come into the yard from the neighborhood and wander by. And I can still recall the smell of his cherry pipe and his raspy laugh. He was devout. He was devout in his attention to the ones he nurtured and loved, his grandchildren, his family, his garden, his neighborhood. He created community there. He held faith that the seeds would grow into something good. He taught us how to grow. He shared the abundance, bucketfuls of summer squash and tomatoes with the neighbors. And yes, I've inherited a little bit of that green thumb as I look at my windowsills right now overflowing with tomato and pepper plants that I've planted from seed. Way too many, more than I can take care of. I think of my grandfather. He is present in my gardening, and he's also present in my faith. He gardened, working away, creating life in a neighborhood that many would say was on the edge of decline. In fact, my grandparents had lived in the inner city of Rochester for their entire lives, and they loved their home, and they remained there even as the neighborhood became devastated by poverty. The gifts of my grandfather's stories and squash vines and welcoming visitors were a testament to life. And sadly, the place is no longer, as after my grandparents are long gone, the home was destroyed by fire. But the pictures and the memories and the legacy of faithful gardening remain. So too does the legacy of spirit. My grandfather's earth-centered spirituality, his spirited life, is a legacy that I carry forth into my work as a Unitarian Universalist minister. It is a gift I find not only in the garden, but in the communities that we create and sustain together. As Unitarian Universalists, we share a faith in planting seeds and growing gardens. We plant seeds with the belief that they will rise and transform into something new. We may come from many different religious or non-religious backgrounds. We may carry all sorts of stories and symbols, some religious baggage left to be unpacked. But we all yearn for something more, something life-giving that values, nurtures, and celebrates life. In UU community, we are bound by a spirit that invites us to the work of deepening and nurturing wholeness. In community, we are called by the spirit of life. We may call that spirit by 1,000 different names: God, Gaia, the interdependent web, mystery, silence, stillness, community, love. And yet, I wonder if there might be shared spiritual practices that we explore and walk with together to deepen our own celebration and living. Too often in religion, spirituality is seen as an otherworldly pursuit, something that focuses on a detachment from life, a soul that is separate from the body, a heaven that is separate from the earth, a God that is removed from the daily. But an earth-centered spirituality is rooted in the here and now, in our everyday existence. Brother David Steindl-Rast is a 96-year-old author and Benedictine monk known as the grandfather of gratitude. And he writes these words: I would suggest that what I mean by spirituality and by spirit is aliveness. Aliveness is of one piece with life as we know it, with the aliveness that you recognize when you are breathing and when your body is functioning. He says that full aliveness includes not only mindfulness, that state of being conscious and aware of our thoughts and surroundings, but also bodyfulness, that quality of being in touch and bringing our whole selves, our bodies, to the present moment of experience through our senses. Another definition of spirituality that I love comes from Beverly Harrison, who is a Christian theologian and feminist, who writes, spirituality is the capacity to live deeply into the concrete, creative order of things as co-creative participants. So that is the spirituality that I'm speaking of here, a creative source of life which connects us like roots underground, and also lifts us towards greater freedom and liberation. When we think of the spirit of life, the roots hold me close, the wings set me free. It is the spirituality of emergence, of the growing edge, of the growing of soul. This is the spirit that calls us into community, into a deeper connection, which the poet Marge Piercy describes in her poem, The Seven of Pentacles, in those places where connections are made, where more than half the tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. To nurture spiritual growth, that full aliveness and connection with life, that is core. It is a core reason that we gather, core to our religious work as Unitarian Universalists. It's core to our identity. In the early 19th century theologian and leader of Unitarianism, William Ellery Channing, wrote that the great end of religious instruction is to awaken the soul, to excite and cherish spiritual life. Awakening the soul. There's another one of those loaded words, soul. Well, you may know soul in the person or community when you experience it. Again, not an otherworldly thing, but an embodied, embedded thing in this life. The depth seen when you are present at the birth of a baby, or when you hold a new child, when you hear music that touches you deeply. While religion has an intellectual quality, it also requires intuition and heart and community. It requires body and earth. As a Unitarian Universalist minister serving a congregation, I like to say that my work is to grow souls. And it's our work, actually. It's our work together in shared ministry to grow communities that ask deeper questions within a network of relationships of mutual accountability that provide our spiritual lives with strength and sustenance, and together take that soul work into our everyday lives and into the world. And while there are beautiful practices that we might gather from other faiths, meditations, prayers, readings, we can also have our own unique way as Unitarian Universalists to grow soul together. The late Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, who died last year, and his wife Jan were longtime ministers at Unity Church Unitarian in St. Paul, Minnesota. Together, they shaped their congregational life around the work of soul. They talked about where the holy resides, within, among, and beyond, recognizing that as Unitarian Universalists, we might understand the holy in different ways, yet also understand that holiness is grounded in our living experience in the sharing and listening to one another's stories. For Eller Isaacs, the idea of the holy within, among, and beyond helped to frame not only their worship services, but also decision-making processes of their church. I believe that seeking and noticing the holy within, among, and beyond us can be a survival strategy in difficult times. Where do we see acts of kindness when there is violence? Where do we see new life growing when there is destruction to the earth? Where do we see devotion, love, all of the things that sustain us? That is noticing the holy. And the Spirit also calls us to move beyond ourselves. The questions of our communities are ones both of seeing and perceiving, but also responding, asking, when we recognize that holy within, among, and beyond us, what are we called to do? How are we called to live in these times? Our religious communities help us to grow soul. They deepen the roots that hold us close. They offer life-sustaining ways through embodied celebratory worship, through vital religious education, small group ministries, spiritual deepening, through relationship and partnership building in the larger world. That's the soul work of transformation. But soul work is also the work of liberation, the work that calls us to stretch out into the world. And there is no doubt that the hurting world needs us. Unitarian Universalist spirituality moves from within and among into the beyond to create compassion and justice in our lives, our community, and our world. For you see, the spirit of life is also the spirit of creativity. That call to creativity is also integral to our Unitarian Universalist heritage and theology. It was 20th century theologian James Luther Adams who talked about our human freedom to choose. Do we choose creativity or do we choose destruction? And he said that through the use of creative freedom, humanity expresses the highest form of vitality that existence permits, and that we participate in a divine creativity. The spirit of life or divine creativity that we join with is present for many of us in the world of nature, in the earth, and it is present in community. As we create and grow at what I like to say is seed level, not sea level, seed level. Seed level is that space underground, deeply rooted, where life breaks forth and comes into being. That is the place where we grow soul through our deep connections, through relationships, through building collective resilience. Rowan White is a seed keeper from the Mohawk community of Akwesasne, an indigenous seed keeper who has done her work in reclaiming, what she says is rematriating seeds, indigenous seeds, the many different kinds of seeds that were stolen, bringing them back to their native lands. And she writes about seeds with a sense of the holy present, the sense of the sacred in those seeds. She writes, the seeds show us the pathway. They courageously and blindly in dark soil sprout into something they have never before been, something that makes them transform from their intimate immensity of a small spark of life into something so big and perhaps unfathomable to their tiny bodies. They use their creativity and innovation to move through what seems like death underneath the soil into complete transformation. And they grow me as a human who each season has a bit more courage to make my life a love poem to all those seen and unseen who make this brief and wild life possible. The life of spirit, the spirit of life, invites us to enter that seed space of transformation, to go within and to plant the seeds of the world we wish to create through the people we are becoming. This is not isolated individual work, but interconnected community work. The work of growing underground, of keep reaching out, keep bringing in. The soul work that might seem so small and personal, but is interwoven as we grow our capacity to embody the just and liberated worlds we long for. It is the work of emerging. The spirit of life is present every time we gather. It is present in the trust that we offer of our lives to the people who we come into community with. It is present in the deepening of our souls, the strengthening of connections, the creative growing forth in liberating love beyond ourselves into the world. May you go forth to nurture deep roots, and may you grow soul for the garden in this abundant life we share together. For as we are told by the poet, after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes.
Please rise, embody your spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Each week, we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with the SPCA? The SPCA of Westchester. Please refer to our e-newsletter or website for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. You may also scan the QR code in your order of service. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge. Or if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Now please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words come from seed keeper Rowan White, who writes, "In the darkness of soil, new life begins. Imaginal cells stir, awakening what lies dormant within. You have seed songs that run inside your blood and bones like wild rivers calling you awake. Water them deeply. Sing to them sweetly. It's a new dawn. Let us go forth to plant seeds, seeds of the people we are seeking to become, seeking seeds of worlds that we are seeking to create." May it be so.